So I'd like to introduce our moderator. So Shari Williams is with us this morning. She is the co-anchor of Action News at 5 and Action News at 10 on PHL 17. She joined the team in March 2014. And before she was the week before arriving in Philadelphia, she was the weekend anchor and reporter in Dallas, Texas. She has a passion for knowledge and information and a gift for getting people to open up in interviews and tell their stories. So just stay tuned this morning. I'm sure we're going to see some of that. And she began her journalism career while still in college. So keep that in mind to the young women on the call this morning. So I have the distinct honor and pleasure of welcoming our moderator this morning, Shari Williams. I'm going to turn it over to her.
Thank you so much, Ms. Gambone, and it's just great to see all of these faces on here today. Some people I'm seeing for the absolute first time. Of course, I know of you and I've heard of your work. JA does a fantastic job of impacting young people in a positive way in this community. So at 6ABC, that's one of the things we really believe in. I tell people all the time, I don't really show up for things unless I think they're really doing something great. So I know Junior Achievement has a mission and is getting the work done. So I'm so glad to be here as your moderator. To all the young people who are on here, don't be shy. Don't be shy. The chat is wide open. This is the new way that we, of course, are communicating. So we need to really embrace it because it works. Having these gatherings and hearing and learning really makes a difference. So please take advantage of this time. I wouldn't be where I am if I didn't just really go after it and pull on people's coattails and say, hey, I'm here and I have something to say and I've got questions. So this morning, of course, and this month, it is Women's History Month. And as women, I think the majority of us maybe on here identify as such. Even if you don't, we can still look at a woman and know she's a pretty awesome thing. So as we celebrate Women's History Month, we're going to kick off this pretty exciting panel where we'll be talking with women who are working in what they call non-traditional roles. Women, as we know, over a period of time, getting in the workforce only just over some 100 years ago, there were certain capacities women were expected to go into. And of course, women, we keep knocking down doors and kicking barriers and going over the hurdles and to change the look of what can a woman do? And this panel is to really show you that we can do anything we decide. What is it we want to put our energy into? And so that's what our panel discussion will be about today. Of course, we know that fields in the beginning, they were all pretty much dominated by men as women really were given roles inside the home until various factors began to change. Women began to push for more of their freedoms and more of their liberties. Women were also just needed when men were gone to war, and women had to hold down this country for quite a period of time. And of course, after we got the right to vote, which didn't come until the 1920s, then of course, women really began to see there's more that I can do than be told to be in the home or be a caregiver or be a teacher or clerk or those types of jobs. And so it's all about really expanding into these other fields where women necessarily aren't the dominating piece in business, in finance, even in the military, I see, in technology and trades. But our panelists have really gotten into these types of industries and they are doing very well. So once we see a thing, then we can know a thing. And if we can see it happening, then we know it's possible. The scope of what is considered traditional versus non-traditional careers is really, as we know, defined by people who are in society and have plenty of opinions on what women should be and should be doing. And sometimes we do that to ourselves as women. Sometimes we too are thinking a woman should and shouldn't do, instead of maybe embracing the talents that people have. Non-traditional jobs, though, are also defined when we talk about it from a labor standpoint. The US government keeps these statistics on what are women and men doing out there with their careers. So some traditional careers that we know that women have really fallen into and dominated. As we take a look here at this information that we can really follow, nurse practitioners, we're dominating that. 9 out of 10 women are doing that work. Secretaries and administrative assistants, our preschool and kindergarten teachers. Also, almost 100% of those are performed by women. Women also, waiters and waitresses, 71% there. Social work and flight attendants, when we go in these spaces, if you've been on an airplane, then you've probably noticed many of the women, the people you see in the aisles helping us get to and fro are women who are flight attendants. So those are some of those traditional careers where the Labor Department says women are really dominating here. But where is it where women aren't necessarily a big part of the pie, but gaining ground, those non-traditional careers, physicians and surgeons? You know, when you go to the doctor's office and you look around, you're maybe going to see 3 to 4 out of the 10 people there are women. Computer programmers, only about 21%. Firefighters, and I know a lot of bad women who are firefighters in the city of Philadelphia. They're good people, but look at that percentage, only barely 6%. Chefs and head cooks running restaurants, 21%. Sheet metal workers, aircraft pilots, flight engineers. As we know, some of those jobs, when they begin to require a certain amount level of skill and training and education and demand from the time it takes to be away from the home and the family, that's where we see fewer women. So when we talk about those categories, we can see where women traditionally right now are going into certain fields and where women aren't. And what I want you to notice as we talk about some of these jobs, you'll see that where the money is, the more higher paying jobs are really going to be sometimes those fields that are still being dominated by men. But we, of course, want you to understand that you can be a high earner too and get into some of these fields. Architects and computer programmers, all of this is mostly dominated by men. Well, where are women gaining some ground though? As we look at that, yes, more women are becoming chemists, more women are becoming lawyers and more doctors and correctional officers. But we also are changing those social and cultural conventions. And some of the reasons that we're seeing these shifts, those economic pressures, more and more women are really the head of households. And so you have to find a way to support your family. Things cost more, you need more money. So more women are trying to find ways to make more money and get into more lucrative industries. Those financial incentives, when you know, hey, if I go this way, I'm going to make this much an hour. But if I go this way, I'll make double that amount. Women are really beginning to look at what else they can do with their skill set. And there's a big demand for these higher skilled, higher paying jobs. They're wide open in some cases. So why not a woman step in and be in those roles? So by the end of today's chat and panelist conversation on this program, we really hope that you will see, regardless of gender, all careers are a possibility. So as you listen in, students, be sure if you have any questions or any comments, just put them in the chat, because I know Joy and other members of the JA team will be following along and helping me see what we need to bring up as we go along. So let's meet our panelists this morning, because we have 4 esteemed women who truly are doing some work that maybe we haven't thought of and maybe we should be thinking of, and we get to learn and hear from them. So our panelists are here, and we're going to start with our first introduction here. Miss Lydia Lee, why don't you kick us off? Tell us a little bit, please, about what you do. And when you think about what you're doing, was it what you trained for? Is it what you thought you would do? And then how did you get to this connection? And we'll do this part a bit quickly as we go around and continue to add our panelists here to the conversation. Miss Lydia, please give us your name, your title, and the skill set of what you're doing. And is it what you thought you'd be doing?
Oh, thank you so much for that introduction. I'm so happy to be here with you today. So my name is Lydia Lee. I am a project management leader at Janssen R&D, so research and development, which is a pharmaceutical company of Johnson & Johnson. So I've been with the company about 16 years, and originally I did not train to be a project manager. I actually started working with animals really early in high school. So I went to WV Saul, which is a agricultural high school, the oldest and largest, I think, in the country, and actually wanted to be a veterinarian. So I kind of discovered that early at the age of 6. So, you know, throughout my life, I've worked with animals. I had a lot of pets. I kind of pursued that through high school and college, going to the sister school at Delaware University. And I really had projected myself to be a scientist and working in animal research. How I ended up in the role that I'm in today is working with clinical trials. I kind of support, you know, all the activities that have to happen to do a clinical trial. And if you think about like COVID, and you might have heard these terms more recently because the public has really been exposed to science through that situation. And so I kind of help, you know, bring those activities together to produce the clinical trial and manage all the things that go with it. I always wanted to help animals, and so the transition to helping people was fairly easy. A lot of the things are the same. Animals are very similar to people biologically, and so the studies that we've done with animals always translate over into humans. And so that's kind of how I made the jump from working with animals within my company. But I'm really happy to be here today, so thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Lydia Lee. Our next powerhouse panelist, please, Ms. Martha Winters, if you would tell us more about your title and what you do on a daily basis, and was that what you studied for? How'd you make this leap in this connection?
Yeah, good morning. Thank you for having me. So my title is Market Executive Technology Banking for Wells Fargo. That means nothing more than I help to lead and coordinate the efforts that Wells Fargo has to support tech startups and companies as they grow in the technology space. So it'll come as no surprise to anyone here that technology companies represent a fast growing area. And on the finance side, which is what Wells Fargo specializes in, our goal is to help nurture along small technology startups, help them grow, help them lay an operational and financial foundation, I guess would be a good way to say it, so that the owners, the entrepreneurs, the individuals who are nurturing that fintech, software company, semiconductor company, whatever space they're in, can focus on what they do best, which is the technology running their individual companies. So we look to take the banking component and operational component off of their plate and allow them to do what they do best. Did I think this is where I would be? No. My father drove me to 2 colleges and told me I could pick from an all-girls school or a Catholic university. We weren't Catholic as a family, but he thought nuns would be good for me. And he told me I was going to major in accounting. And that's what I did. My undergraduate degree is in accounting. I thought for sure I would come out of school and go into an accounting firm or some independent company in that function. And, you know, there was a different path in store for me. So I started with the bank while I was still in undergrad. I did my MBA at St. Joe's part-time while I was working for what then was Core States Bank and has since become Wells Fargo. And I have 2 securities licenses that support the time that I've spent in my career here doing investment banking. So, you know, while I would tell you there's a large female representation in banking generally, I still am stunned to find that I can sit in a meeting and be the only female at that table of 6 or 7 individuals. It's just stunning, really, after all this time. So glad to be here. Happy to take any questions as they come.
Great. And we're glad you're in those rooms, Ms. Winters, and hopefully more women will join you. We'll have to expand that table. Let's go to our next panelist who's joining us this morning. Ms. Simone Osuji has a great background and a story to share with us as well. If you would just tell us more about your current title and how your connection of what you were training to do, are you doing that today?
Yes. Hi. So good morning. Yes, my name is Simone Osuji. Currently, I am a senior engineer at Lockheed Martin. So basically, Lockheed Martin is a defense contractor. So we make various machinery, such as I specifically work on radar systems in order to, detect any, missiles or any adversarial targets coming in, which is pretty relevant right now, as we all know. So basically I work in control systems for radar. So I write code in C++, and I also basically work in hardware to, I guess you could say, kind of like lay out the circuitry virtually in some of the boards that we create in our systems. I can explain a little bit more on that later if that doesn't. It's a little bit hard to explain, but so I kind of lucked out, and I pretty much figured from middle school that I did want to be an engineer. I used to watch, I don't know, I used to watch the Science Channel and National Geographic channel growing up, so I was a little bit nerdy. And through panels actually such as this, I found out, oh, so the people who, you know, make the cool robotics and stuff like that, those people are engineers. So yeah, so my educational background, I got my bachelor's degree in electrical engineering from Drexel University. And I think after a year or two after graduating college, I was working at another defense contractor, Northrop Grumman, and I worked towards my master's part-time in electrical and computer engineering.
And you got that done.
Yeah, I got it done.
Congrats.
Thank you.
And for our last panelist to introduce herself this morning, and thanks for being with us here in this JA call here about women rising, Miss Margaret Cobb. If you would please tell us more about your current title and a bit of what you were training in, and did you land where you thought you would?
I here did, but Margaret Cobb, I work for Septa, and I'm a heavy equipment operator. So basically I operate radars, cranes, backhoes, anything you can think of that you can like dig up streets or just tear up stuff, basically, put stuff back together. So I work on the trolley lines, mostly Market Frankfurt line, Broad Street line, just replacing rail, fixing the street, putting cranes on the top of buildings or whatever else they needed to do, transporting equipment, transporting rail, and all kinds of track material for the track department. Initially, like, I probably had like 1,000 different jobs since high school, but I went to college because I wanted to be a nurse, right? Took all the prerequisites for that and then decided that's not what I wanted to do. So I did graduate with my associates in literature, arts, and sciences, but I ended up getting a job working for Septa as a trolley operator. And maybe like 3 months in, I was like, this is not going to work. So I started taking tests for other positions within the company, and I transferred to the track department. And that was a lot of work. But then I saw somebody sitting in a dump truck one day, and I was like, he looks like he's having a lot of fun just sitting there, right? But then I saw all the other equipment too, and I was like, I think I can do that. So I went to the test where, mind you, I didn't have any experience at all in the construction field. They taught me everything. I got my Class A CDL, pretty much like certified as a crane operator. So anywhere else I wanted to go, if I decided to quit Septa today, I could pretty much find a job anywhere else in the construction world, basically. And I've been in that department for 2 years now, and I love it.
Love it. Love to hear that. Again, to our young people who are listening, these are women who are working in fields that, hey, most of their counterparts are men. And you heard them express that. And one of the things I heard through that theme, though, is really still knowing a bit in yourself. You wanted to explore a different path for yourself, and then you took it. I'm Shari Williams. I'm a journalist at 6ABC. Growing up, man, I had an interest in a lot of different things. I was listening to you women, like, I care a lot about my money. I was like, okay, how am I going to do anything in that? I'd love to know, like, how does a thing go from nothing and then be built? So construction and engineering, I had all these interests in math and science and technology. And as a young woman, apparently, little did I know, that wasn't normal for these things I was interested in, right? I was always apparently interested in those things that were considered more male dominated. And as we know, journalism, like every other field, pretty much until women really began to come in the workforce, it was dominated by men. And as a woman in journalism, in the beginning of my career, I'd be told things like, no, don't be too pretty, and maybe you should smile more, or make sure your hair is this. So there are all these various norms of other people trying to tell women how to do and be who we are. And I can say that more and more, these companies realize we really need people just to show up as themselves. We really need people to come to the table and just bring what they got and be their authentic self. And so I've been one who's been pushing for that for most of my career. I've been that person speaking up and out for women. I think a part of that comes from my childhood, being raised by an educator and a person who was working also in politics and knew a lot about the world, but also saw young women as more than probably the world was thinking women could be. I really had that environment that empowered me to push barriers since I was a kid. I did study journalism at the University of Tennessee, but I went to college pre-med. My real goal in the beginning was to be a dermatologist. I wanted to really help people of color with their skin more. But when I got to college, I said, I don't want to be here this long. So then I switched to what am I just good at? What's natural for me? And if you needed to know something and you needed something said, then that was kind of what I was good at. So I switched to that. And in high school, young people, we had a program for television at my high school, and I got involved in that. So I had that background when I made the switch in college. And right now I'm preparing to pursue my master's in mental health and counseling. It's the other thing that I know is in me, and that is to be a helper and to navigate people through life. So although I'm in television, I'm pursuing my master's in the other gifts that I believe that I need to just work on and hone out. So that's my story as we move on now here with the panel. One of the things I want to ask the panelists to share is, did you dream big enough, do you think, when you were a younger person and you were thinking of, for yourself? I found it so interesting. Miss Winters had a dad who was going to, give her the path and tell her what she was going to do. I think we all, if we have people who love us, they're trying to steer us certain ways, but at some point in our lives, we own it. We need to own it for ourselves. I'm going to start with you, Miss Margaret. Tell us, did you have this type of dream, for yourself? Do you think you dreamed big enough? And honestly, I tell people, I don't really know what I want to be when I grow up. I'm still going. So what do you say about that?
Right now, I still don't think I am currently right now. But definitely, like before I started here, I definitely don't think my dreams were big enough, especially in high school, not having any guidance, really, even from the guidance counselors. It was hard, just like getting my footing. Once I graduated high school, went to college, it was like every step I took was like, is this right? I don't know, but we're gonna see what happens.
Yeah, and that's okay. I think as long as you keep moving, that's just a part of the journey, the ups and the downs. How about you, Miss Simone Osuji?
I think, I think maybe I did dream big enough, or I guess it's kind of hard to say because I don't fully remember. But I did know from the beginning that at least when I was a kid, I at least knew I wanted to build cool things, whether that was robotics or prosthetics. I wasn't completely sure, but I just, was like, oh, cool stuff on TV. I want to be Iron Man. I want to be Tony Stark. Like,
see these little nudges we get along the way.
Yeah.
What I want the young people to know is the thing that you like to do, you can get paid for it. You really can get paid for it. And as we begin to move more and more into this digital world, what really is the limit? Let's not place limits on ourselves. Miss Martha, for you, it sounds like you had that structure and a dad who had a plan for you. And when did you realize I've got my own dream?
That's a good question. So, look, my dad did have plans for me, and it was just to push me further than he was pushed. I'm first generation college, and on my family side, my husband is the same. So, to credit our parents, they both knew that they just needed to push us to the next level of education, and from there we would figure it out. I would say to you that I'm not sure I picked this path for myself. And I think there's a lesson in this, which is, I'm fortunate enough to have worked for a large enough institution this entire time that they kept offering opportunities to change, to take a different path. My ladder has not been straight. My path has been windy through the bank for 33 years. And all I can do is encourage people to try it. There's nothing that can't be undone. I never said no. So they would approach me to move from, much more of a hands-on position to a management position. I said yes. They asked me to move back. I said yes. I went from specializing with retail and consumer products companies to media, telecom, and technology companies. I said yes. Like, just try it. There's just nothing, you don't know what you don't know until you give it a try, and you can undo it.
Love to hear that. It has to be like, I did this and I gotta stay here. We're never stuck. Never stuck. No. Oh, Miss Lydia, what are your thoughts on that? Were you dreaming big, or when did it hit you like, you know what, this is where I'm gonna go?
It's a great question. I don't know if you ever stopped dreaming. So I would say, if I look at my younger self, I did have big dreams, but I think I had a supportive mother and family that kind of helped me get to that point. But I'm also a self-starter, so I raised my hand for a lot of stuff. I think, you see opportunities or you see things that you want and you don't know how to get them. So you start asking questions, you start reaching out to your network. And ladies, like, and whoever, you have a network now, even though you're in high school, you have counselors, you have teachers, you have your friends, if they're going to different colleges on tour, ask questions. Did you like this college? What did you like about it? So I think that, you have a network, use it, raise your hand as much as you can. You never know what those opportunities will lead to. I can count many times over how I just raised my hand for something and later it came back and gave me an open door to a new experience. So just keep dreaming. I think we just, have to keep doing that all of our lives.
I love to hear that. And what I hear from the four of you is continuing to just show up. You didn't back away from it. And the more you went to it, the more doors that will open if you're present, if you're there. And for the young people, if you're thinking, I'm shy or I'm quiet or I don't know, guess what? Neither do the men. Neither do they. And what I try to tell people is, people say, I'm nervous, I'm scared, I'm fearful, I'm afraid. And I tell people, then do it afraid. Do it afraid. Sometimes we have to just go through it. Looking at some of the comments, I just want you guys to know we've got people commenting, hey, if you fail at something, just pick yourself up, develop that next plan. Sometimes saying yes to those that see your potential beyond what you believe you can do can be very rewarding. And sometimes, people see things in us we're not seeing just yet. And the great thing about the skilled trades is you can earn a good living without having necessarily to go through so much college training. One of the things being commented here, especially about Miss Margaret's story, she talked about her struggles in trying to find her way through high school. And that is so true. We can now really carve our niche out, and people will pay us, like I say, to do these things that we like and that we love. And thank goodness for the shoulders we stand on for those women who came before us, who maybe didn't have these options, and the men who were our allies, who helped us get to these various places. And that's a very good point to make. You can have a certain level of education and still find great paying jobs, because they're difficult to do, because they're still highly skilled, whether you've got that bachelor's or that master's or not. College isn't for everyone, but you need to know that you do need some additional training in something, wherever you get it. You are going to have to learn, whether it's on the job or getting that associate's, getting that bachelor's, going on to get that master's or that PhD. The money is there. So how do we get our hands on it is what I'm always trying to figure out. Let's talk more a little bit about the reality of being a woman in these spaces. I also have a background in sports. So, and in politics, and we know how these two things can go. I've been the only woman in many places, thankfully, that is changing. But I remember when I worked in the NBA or I covered professional athletes or college athletes, I was the only woman a lot of times in locker rooms where I'm the only woman in there with a microphone. And I had to really decide, am I going to show up and do what I do, or am I going to be shy? And sometimes I have to give myself that little pep talk. And then I say, I'm here to do something. They're here to do something, and they're no better than me. So Sharrie, let's get to it. And that's sometimes what I have to do, tell myself I'm all right, I belong, and let's do it. So let's talk about being the only woman sometimes, and how we need to be sure we take up space, and how do we feel as women in the workplace? And I want to start with Miss Martha on that question.
Well, again, another good question. I think you hit the nail on the head. You just have to do it. I mean, no one in their right mind is going to correct you in the middle of a meeting, or tell you don't belong there in that type of setting. So own it, and I would say with that though comes a good bit of need on our part to earn it too. It's one thing to be invited to the table, but once you get there, prep for it. Think about how that conversation is going to unfold. Think about what people are likely expecting you to contribute to the conversation or to the meeting, and be prepared for it, so that you get invited back, maybe in a bigger role the next time, right? Don't just show up and sit there, but be prepared for it. And that goes for every aspect of what you're doing. It's true as you walk into each college class, right? Be prepared to put your hand up. Know what your question is on the topic your professor is going to discuss. Have a question planned for every situation. No one will ever fault you for asking.
Great. Miss Lydia?
It's a good question. I think also looking at the lens through a woman of color, sometimes you are the only person in the room, or you were one of few. I think some of the things that have helped me over time is just how I talk to myself. So Sharrie, you mentioned something earlier about giving yourself a pep talk. How you speak to yourself really speaks to your self-confidence, how you feel about things. There's something unique about you that no one else has. And so I always think of that reference when I'm walking into these spaces where it might be uncomfortable. There's something I have that you don't have. I have these experiences. I have a background. And so I try to use that as much as possible. Just let people know that I have a unique skill set, a unique value, and I do belong here. And so, that kind of helps me being in those spaces when you have that little pep talk with yourself first thing in the morning. If you have a big test, you have, a new class you're going to, maybe you're starting a program, college, whatever, just give yourself that pep talk to get in there and do your best.
Great advice. Miss Simone.
Okay, yeah, so I definitely agree to the element also of the extra layer of being a woman of color in the room. So I also, like Lydia said, give myself pep talks, and it doesn't have to be a big grand, like, yeah, you got it, like, you baddie. Like sometimes if I'm a more quiet person, so sometimes I'll be like, okay, just do this one step at a time, or I'll come in a meeting at least expecting to grow gradually. So maybe, if I'm new the first meeting, I'll push myself being a very quiet person and being like a quiet woman, being like, okay, this goal for this meeting is to ask one question. And then maybe the next session be like, okay, maybe ask a couple more questions, or come with an idea to the meeting. And then slowly I start growing my confidence, and then I can become more vocal, stuff like that. I think the other thing is through my college career, I've seen maybe a couple speckles of people who look like me. So I'm just like, okay, they've been through the fire. If they can do it, and they probably had a harder time, I can definitely do it. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to participate in the panel, to like give back and, be a face of, people who aren't commonly seen in this field.
Yeah, and I'm glad that your face is in the place. I'm glad to see you here, and it's so true. We do need to rally together sometimes. We sometimes need to make sure when we see how other women are being treated or talked to, you know, if we can step up for her, guess what? We may need it in the future too. It's one of the things I learned along the way. It's not just about me going out here trying to see how great a story I can tell and how much money I can make, but making allies along the way. That's a true part of also being a leader. When you get in the fire, will someone stand with you as well and speak up for you? Miss Margaret, your thoughts of, you know, being a woman in the space that you're in and not really seeing as many women. Tell me, how many women do you see in what you're doing currently in Philadelphia?
Well, the department that I'm in right now is 3 women out of maybe 70 men. So there's about 30 on the city side, 30 on the rural side. It's like 6 operators. I'm lying, it's 4 women.
4 guys.
There's another woman suburban. But anyway, when I first came to this department, it was like, I did kind of feel intimidated at first. So it made me like, just want it even more. So like 8 hours in a day, of course, there's a lot of training going on, but even after everybody else would leave, I would stay and practice on certain things that I wanted to like perfect. So like, you know, everybody would come in to work the next day and I'd be like, look what I found out how to do yesterday on my own after work when everybody left. And it just, like Martha said, like I was able to own what I was doing. Like I was able to just like, be like, I can do this just like you guys can do it. And it made me feel good about myself.
Yeah. A confidence builder for us internally, right? When you can check a thing off your box and you can say you're on the next rung on that ladder. And one of the things I heard from our panelists here to the young people listening is, don't just come to the table, right? One of my colleagues early in my journalism career, his point was, people are watching us every day. We're in people's homes. Thousands of people see us every day. Over a period of time through a week, we may reach 1 million people, and we need to be good. So be good at what you do. Once you get in an area, find out who's doing it great. Find out who's really someone you can see how they're doing it. You like it, pull a bit from them. Practice, stay after, do the work, do the time, you know, really hone your craft. If there's something you want to know, you think you're good at it, then really get in it and own it. We're going to do our final question now before we then open it up to our young people. And let's zip through this last question, ladies, here. And that is, let's talk about this lasting piece of advice. You know, what's that one line of advice that maybe you would give to yourself if you were that teenager when you were? What's the piece of advice you would give to yourself in those teenage years? And we're going to start with Miss Simone on this.
I guess I would tell myself to have more confidence going into what I've gone into, and to look at even the smallest triumphs that you've had. That'll help you build your confidence, you know, even going into unknown territory, which I've had to go through in this field.
Miss Margaret. Turn your mic on, Miss Margaret. Okay, gotcha.
So, I don't know. I would have never thought like in the next 10 years since I graduated high school, well, 15 years, that I'll be in the field that I'm in right now. So I guess that the advice that I would give myself kind of wouldn't make sense back then, but it would be to anybody that gives you advice or tells you something that you might not think is important at the time, still listen to it, because you just never know later on if it might click in your head like, oh my gosh, like somebody told me this before, now I can apply this to whatever I have going on right now.
Listening, keeping those ears open. Miss Martha, your piece of advice.
I would say no matter where you are, what you're doing, identify someone as a mentor, which I'm sure you hear a lot and we talk a lot about, but additionally, look for a sponsor. They're 2 different people and 2 different roles. A sponsor helps you get there. A mentor helps you think about where you want to go. And it's really, really important in school, in life in general, and in a career to identify who those people are and to keep drawing on their experience and knowledge and applying it as you go.
To the young people listening, this idea of a mentor and a sponsor, a mentor is someone who will guide you and give you advice. You can watch and see them. A sponsor is someone who will advocate for you, someone who's in a position, who can elevate you to your next spot, who can hire you, who can promote you, who will speak up for you when you're not around. And those are the differences. I mean, I have my mentors from my high school, right? I had the women in my theater and in my TV class who gave me this foundation to show me how to do what I do. But then they can't hire me or promote me. So how can I find someone who can then speak up for me and make it tangible, quite frankly, to my career and to my wallet, who can help me stay employed and elevate? And lastly, a piece of advice for Miss Lydia.
I think the biggest thing is, if you really want something, you're really passionate about it, is don't stop trying. There's always an alternative path. You might not see it, it might be uncomfortable, it might feel arduous or difficult, but there's always another way to get to that end goal. So my best advice is, if something doesn't work out the first time, think about, how else can I get to this goal? What else can I do differently? And I think that will carry you through a lot.
And what I'll add to that is keep moving. And when you see someone moving the way you want to move, gravitate. Don't be a person to stand back and question how they do it or look at them or put them down. No, ask them, how do you do that? And that's really the difference on having that attitude to remember there is space at the table for all of us. We don't have to step on anyone or put anybody down. We can really acknowledge other people, see their strengths and say, I want to partner with you. And people ask me all the time, how do I have the network that I have? Because if you see my cell phone Rolodex, young people, there's people in that phone that I'm sure you want to talk to. There's some people in there who are supposed to be a big deal. But the only reason that they could be in my circle is they had to see something in me, right? And I had to then acknowledge, I see what you're doing. So there's a level of appreciation and respect, not being in a level of jealousy or hate. There's enough room for all of us to continue to grow and support each other as women. Okay, so I want to do now is open it up to the questions. I'll be looking for them here in the chat. I'll make a few of the comments that were made so far. Figuring out what you do not want to do is just as important as trying things and adjusting. It's a great plan too, and I totally agree with that as we're on our journeys here. Young people, go ahead and pop your questions in and let me know if there's anyone in particular you wanted for. And Joy, if I'm missing anything, just let me know. Martha is so right. Be prepared and don't be afraid to use your voice. So true. If you make an impact as the only woman in the room, you will be remembered. Always keep learning. Another one of the comments here. Any questions? Or comments? Okay. Question here. Did you ever feel as if you were less talented as others? Miss Lydia, you want to comment on that quickly?
That's a great question. And you'll hear the term imposter syndrome. And so women often will have a problem with this. And it's because it's not that we're not skilled and we don't have the talent. It's just that we may not have the same confidence as others. And so, you know, it kind of goes back to, you know, how you talk to yourself. Think about what you can do, your personal unique value and skills. And that will help you overcome. You belong in any room that you're in, and always remember that and carry that with you.
Margaret, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, being as though I work around so many men, it's like so many things that I like kind of have to talk to myself about. Like Lydia said, like, you know, they expect you to just, well, first I felt like they expected me to have like some type of attitude because, you know, sometimes they say stuff like, oh, is it that time of the month and all that stuff? You got to check them. Like,
that's right.
It's not that. just not about to treat me like you would treat another man around here. So, sometimes you gotta, just kind of stop them in their tracks. But I don't know. Most days I feel like I keep such a positive attitude that I do feel like an equal most days. And especially the way like they rally around me to like kind of help me with stuff and teach me stuff. Even now, 2 years in, I'm still learning stuff to this day. But I mean, you're gonna feel like that sometimes, but you kind of gotta just brush it off and just know that you can do whatever it is that you set your mind to.
Great. Lots of questions coming in now. Let me go here. How do you have those conversations about getting a sponsor without being imposing or demanding? Ms. Martha, quick comment on that?
Yeah, you earn it is the short answer, right? Somebody gives you a job to do, and Margaret, I loved what you said about how everybody else would go home for the day and you would take the opportunity to stay behind and get a jump start on the next day's training. And that's what you do. You think about what they've asked you to do. You think about how to take it one step beyond that, and you earn their respect. And as you do that repeatedly, the sponsorship almost becomes natural, not automatic. And it's not, it's a relationship that develops over time, that you earn over time. And they start asking how they can help you versus you having to ask for help. They start introducing you to the people in Shari's phone contacts.
I love that. I love when that happens. And
Right.
that's, man, you are now people are taking notice of you. And I'll tell you what my dad told me. My dad used to always tell me, he says, no, it's not about who you know, it's about who knows you. I mean, he would build that confidence in me to remember you've got something as well. And I love that. And one of the examples on that, as a journalist, we are all about needing to know who are the players of making news. So we're busy calling the mayor's office, the firefighters, the police, but I love it when they call me. They call me before I can get to it. That lets me know I've shown up enough. They know, hey, Sharrie cares about this. She'll do something with this. So people let me know things. That first question was from Mila about, did you feel less than others? So Mila, thank you for that question. The question about conversations of getting a sponsor was from Haley. Now I believe it's Sienna has a question. Is it possible to go right into your career instead of doing 4 years of undergrad? And I'll answer this one quickly. It really depends on what are the requirements for the job. Each job will have a set of requirements for the applicant. So whoever is applying is the applicant. And here are the guidelines of what you will need. It will be outlined. Employers are, by law, they must outline what are the requirements on paper. Now, is this always the case? Of course, we know people get in some spaces sometimes and they're not what's on the paper, but for sure, like if you want to be a journalist, one of our requirements will be, do you have a bachelor's degree? And so that won't always be the case. And there are ways, of course, some people get in because they've got the work experience and that's speaking louder than some of their education. But most places will let you know what it takes. Lydia, did you want to add to that? Is there anything you think else we should say about that?
Yeah, so in my home life, my family, I have 2 aunts that were big into real estate. They started out in different careers. But their level of education, one got her bachelor's degree, the other did not. And so she started as a stenographer, working as a court reporter, taking down notes. And then she kind of built up her career from there. She was interested in real estate. So like you said, it does depend on, what the job requirement is. But if there's something that's a little off path, like maybe being a business owner, self-starter, there's things that you can do, but it still requires a little bit of learning. So maybe just start with the interest that you have and then go from there.
Yeah. Sienna, just begin to look at these things you're interested in. And this little thing that we all have and we've got access to, everything you want to know is right at your fingertips. My dad tells us all the time, you guys have a lot of questions, don't know a lot of things, but you can get it all right here. So if there's something you're interested in, hey, I want to be, I don't know, a chemist. What does it take to be a chemist? And it's going to tell you, hey, I want to open a restaurant. What education do I need to open a restaurant? And some of these things can be self-starter, and the training and work you do versus a 4-year degree. So no, everything doesn't take a 4-year degree, but I will tell you what statistics show. People who get a bachelor's degree, who get a 4-year degree, over their lifetime have the ability to earn $1 million more than a person who does not get a 4-year degree. That's just mathematics. That's just the reality of the higher paying jobs typically then require more education. Of course, we know there are technical trades and things that just take training that you can learn to do that are highly skilled and high paying, as Ms. Margaret is on our panel as a testament to that, that maybe doesn't have to be a 4-year degree. So there are options. Chastity is saying, I feel like the world today, people feel they have to be better than another person or at a higher level in life, and we can all win together. And it's true, Chastity. We'll see people who are constantly showing us the life they live and as if maybe their life is better. And that's why as we cross paths with people, I always say, show kindness and remind people that there are other ways to live in this life. Bonnie wants to know, what do you do when you're confused on which route to take when it comes to doing the things you love? Ms. Simone, will you weigh in on that question?
Yep. So sometimes I even struggle with this to this day. What I usually do is kind of draw on the advice of any mentors that I have. You know, sometimes just even talking it out, making a pros and cons list if you're, I guess, like deciding between a couple of decisions. And just, I guess, getting ideas on their life experiences and things that they've done. Trying to think of what the last thing I was going to say. I just lost my train of thought. And then after a while of just thinking about it, sometimes you just got to choose a path, I guess, out of, I guess, what you've narrowed it down to, and just head down that road and see how it goes. That's kind of what life is. At a certain point, you just kind of have to start moving through a certain decision.
Yeah. I'm going to do a time check. It's 9:38. I think we're going to do Joy just a little bit more and then we'll wrap here. Okay, a tiny bit more. So we'll get out of here because I know you guys have a more exciting input to gain today. This is so awesome that this is happening. So let's do this here. What do you do when you don't know what to do with your life? Miss Martha, what do you do? Let's do this on a quick take here. What do you do when you just don't know what to do?
Broad at first, you know, there are definitely things we can all roll out, right? I struggled to make it through algebra. Math and science were not for me. So I think we can all narrow the field a little bit. And if your plans are to go on to school after high school, just go to a school that offers a little bit of everything. Try it, experiment. One class in psychology might tell you that you never, ever want to sit through another psychology class again, or it may completely inspire you. But if you go to a liberal arts focused school, meaning they want you to have a little bit of everything, you're going to get great exposure and they'll really help you figure it out.
Miss Lydia?
Sorry, couldn't unmute today. So I guess when I'm at a loss for, what to do, I might pray because I feel like sometimes you get additional clarity. If you're not religious, you could do a vision board and think about the things that you want out of your life, and that might help you make your decision. So I try to be a little practical about it. What are the pros, what are the cons, but also like, what is my heart telling me that I want? And so usually I can kind of find the path that way.
Miss Simone.
I apologize. Can you ask the question one more time? I was reading through the rest of the questions.
The question was, hey, what do you do when you just don't know what to do? When you're just really in a place you don't know what to do with your life? What are your quick thoughts on that?
Ooh, okay. So this is I'm gonna have, I guess, a similar question. I mean, a similar answer to last time. I honestly draw some of my decision making on asking advice on my mentors, and I guess like see their various aspects of life, and I guess like draw, I guess, what resonates with me the most. Like sometimes after talking to them, I'll get a gut feeling and just start heading down that path. And, you know, if it's something that I figure out that I don't want to do, then, you know, you pivot to maybe like the next thing on your list.
And nothing wrong with pivoting. I think we've all been there and probably will be there again in a couple of weeks. Miss Margaret, your thoughts, your advice to the young people listening on, I just don't know, you know, I'm not really getting a good sense, you know, what do I do when I just don't know what to do with my life?
So if you didn't get from my story earlier that I kind of stumbled upon where I'm at right now, that's exactly how that happened. But my advice for anybody that doesn't know right now would be to definitely talk to your teachers and your counselors about your options at school. If you have, I guess like your parents or maybe aunts or uncles, older people in your life that you can talk to about their careers, maybe you visit their jobs or stuff like that. Those are things I wish I would have did when I was younger.
Yeah. And did I say who asked that question? Because I always like to make sure you people who are on here who I can't see your faces, that I see you though, and I know you're here. To the person who asked that question, what I want to say is stay open, man, and keep moving. You know, if that light bulb isn't on now, it will. And just tell yourself you're all right where you are. You're made it this far. You're in high school. You're going to get your high school diploma. And when you get that, you're going to have more options in front of you. Let's do the thing you're doing now. Finish high school strong. Look to build friends. Talk to your teachers more. Anybody you see in the community that seems interesting to you, strike that conversation. The more we engage with the world around us, the more inspiration we get. And that's how the light bulbs go off. And like I said earlier, I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. I still don't know what I'm going to do with all this that I've got. There's more to do. There's always going to be more to do. So don't feel you have to know it all now. And as you heard all of us, we started a thing and then we changed course. We went on that course, we saw something, we took another turn. It's not going to be a straight line. And who wants that? That's boring. You know, there's a lot out here to live and see and explore. So enjoy yourself. Enjoy the journey where you are, and really, if you're struggling with self-confidence or self-belief, hey, find someone who you think, you know, will be open to taking you on a bit and having conversations with. And if you like, you're welcome to email or call me. Miss Joy has my information. And anyone you're interested in on this panel, I believe that their information is going to be made available. And I think if we didn't care to do this, if we cared enough to do this, I think we'd be willing to do more. So let me be the first to say, if anyone on here is interested in chatting with me further or talking with me more, Joy, please let me know how I can get my information to people so they can reach me directly. I have no issue with that at all. I want to just thank Junior Achievement for pulling this in this morning together on rising women, as I like to say, women rising, and let's keep rising. To our panelists today, Miss Lydia Lee, thank you so much. Martha Winters, thank you so much for your input. Simone Osuji and Margaret Cobb, you absolutely are women who are in those non-traditional roles, showing the men how to do it. And hopefully there will be more women to join you along the way. I'm Shari Williams, journalist with 6ABC here in Philadelphia, and I'm so glad to have been your moderator. I'm going to turn it over now to Ms. Gambone and Joy.
I'm at a loss for words, which is very unusual. This panel was amazing. If we could just use our reactions or pop it in the chat and just give a round of applause to Shari Williams, all of our panelists. Just so many nuggets this morning that I think all of us, regardless of where we are in our career, can take away with us this morning. So thank you very much. And we look forward to continuing to work with all of you in our work at Junior Achievement.